Dear friends, welcome to this presentation. The question that we are asking in this paper is whether ambidexterity can be developed, and we are proposing a framework based on the development of consciousness. Over the last 30 years that I have been involved with various business organizations, especially in the information technology space, I have seen that business success is a function of strategy, products, markets, but more importantly, it's a function of the mindset of the leadership team, especially the senior leadership team that really runs the business. And fundamentally, we believe, at least I believe, that there is a deep divide between the way we approach businesses from a mindset perspective and the way we approach our personal lives from a mindset perspective, which is more based on a spiritual kind of orientation. In this paper, Dr. Anil Maheshwari and I actually want to see if we can bridge this chasm, this division between the way we run our businesses and the way we conduct our personal lives. And we have chosen ambidexterity as an example or as a way of trying to create this framework. But what exactly is ambidexterity and what is the context for ambidexterity? So today's business environment is extremely volatile, very uncertain, very complex, very ambiguous, and traditionally we call it the VUCA-driven business environment, VUCA. And COVID-19 has only further accentuated this problem. For organizations wanting to be successful here, they need to be both process-driven, extremely disciplined, and innovative and creative at the same time, which really means they need to be ambidextrous, which is they need to be able to do both things at the same time. And the strategy that they need to follow is what people call organizational ambidextrity. What these organizations need to be able to sort of build on this strategy is ambidextrous leaders and managers. Now, these ambidextrous and leaders and managers need to be able to do both the process-driven part and the creative part, both at the same time. With limited resources, this conflicting priorities, these contradictions of sorts, creates what people have called paradoxical tensions. And these managers need to be able to embrace these paradoxical tensions. They need to be able to do both explorative activities, which are innovative and creative in nature, as well as exploitative activities, which are disciplined and process-driven in nature with equal ease. Charles O'Reilly from Stanford and Michael Tushman from Harvard studied multiple ambidextrous organizations, and they proposed two types of ambidextrity strategies that companies follow in a concurrent manner. The first one is structural ambidextrity. In this strategy, the organization separates out innovation, creative oriented organizations through a separate division, through a separate structure. The rest of the organization does the more process-driven part of the business, whereas the division for innovation is kind of carved out separately. The role of management here is to really set the priorities and define these structures. The roles of individuals within these two organizations is either to be specialized in exploration or exploitation type of activities, and decision making is predominantly centralized. The problem with structural ambidexterity is that, to begin with, these innovation divisions do not get the necessary support from the parent organizations. And more often than not, the products and technologies that these innovation divisions create are not smoothly and seamlessly integrated into the larger organization. To overcome this, they propose something called contextual ambidexterity. In this, there is coexistence of both exploration and exploitation within the same organization structure. Individuals on their own decide how to divide their time between exploration and exploitation type of activities. The role of the management is really to define the context within which individuals can set these priorities. Roles of managers are typically more generalist in nature, and the type of decision making is predominantly distributed. So if you look at organizational ambidexterity strategy, it's a combination of both structural and contextual ambidexterity. And what it needs at the lower part of this picture of this figure is they need ambidextrous leadership. And this ambidextrous leadership necessarily needs to have a paradoxical mindset. Now, there's a lot of research that has happened in terms of what are the antecedents for this kind of leadership, what are the consequences, what are the traits of these kind of leaders. But what really drives this kind of a mindset is not completely understood. And more importantly, what can facilitate this kind of a leadership is rather unexplored. So that's really what we're trying to answer in this paper. And we take the help of another paradoxical strategy, which is that of sustainability. For an organizational to be able to excel in sustainability, they have to be able to balance the needs from a profit perspective, the social aspect, as well as the environment aspect. And for that, they need people who are able to do this in a way that is seamless, that sort of doesn't compromise on any of these three objectives. And these people, these leaders also have the same type of paradoxical mindset that we have discussed from an ambidexterity perspective. But there is research in this area, and through the research of people like Chris Laszlo of Case Western and Frederick Sau, who's more of a practitioner, they have come to identify that leaders who excel at sustainability leadership, actually all of them are practicing some form of practice of connectedness. And through those practices, they are able to develop higher levels of consciousness, which actually helps them to have that paradoxical mindset, which allows them to be better sustainability leaders. So now we try to combine these two environments, this ambidexterity scenario and the sustainability scenario, and try to see if we can create a framework to answer the question. So on the left-hand side, we have seen how ambidexterity works. The paradoxical mindset is essential for ambidextrous leadership. On the right-hand side, we have sustainability leadership with the paradoxical mindset. And we have seen that development of higher levels of consciousness actually helps people become better sustainability leaders. So the question that we need to ask is, can development of higher levels of consciousness actually facilitate ambidextrous leadership? Can those same practices of connectedness that help people become better sustainability leaders also help them become better ambidextrous leaders? The implications of this are really, really profound, because what this does is it brings consciousness development into the very core of organizational strategy. It brings things like practices of connectedness right into the middle of training and leadership development. Should practices of connectedness become a part of organizational training and leadership? And more importantly, I think what it does is that as people sort of bring consciousness into the core of what they do as a company, these higher consciousness leaders become enablers of the business to become a force for good and really make the businesses more flourishing than ever before. Hopefully, this gives you a picture in terms of how development of consciousness and ambidexterity can be connected and become sort of a fundamental organizing principle for businesses to go forward with. We look forward to your questions in the later part of the session. Thank you.